Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Shills Weekly Update with our good friend operator Starsky. I'll be handing over him just a second, but first, let's cover the regular ground. We're not going to discuss anything that might reveal Starsky or any other soldier's positioning or movements or put their life in danger, and we're not going to entertain any pro-Russia propaganda or bigotry, and our moderators will hand out warnings and remove users as needed. So let's everybody play by the rules and have a friendly chat. And with that, I will hand off to you, Starsky, and you can catch us up with what's going on in your corner of the world.
Hi everyone, Operator Starsky here as usual. Hello my friends. Today we have a bunch of news. This week was kind of busy for us Ukrainians and for everybody. So currently there is ongoing airstrike alarm over basically whole territory of Ukraine. So we are expecting missiles from Russia anytime soon. And in Odessa and Kharkiv today, there were explosions. Obviously, some specific targets were hit by Russian missiles as well. Currently, we are trying to understand how many casualties we have among militaries and among civilians. Today on the east, our armed forces have destroyed the UAV, a Russian UAV, and around 26 Russian soldiers were eliminated, which is confirmed. Also, the airborne troops from Lviv who operate on the Donbass currently have destroyed 2 Russian tanks. And we are, I would say, successful in the area of Kherson. So yesterday we were, Ukrainian troops were about 15 kilometers away from Kherson. Today it's 10 kilometers away. So we are moving towards Kherson at a pretty good pace, I would say. Today in Kiev we've had a visit from our partner countries. So leaders of France, Germany, Italy, and Romania visited Ukraine. They had opportunity to meet our president and visit Irpin. And I can say that this visit was very important for them, so they could see what kind of damage was taken by this town. And they could also see signs and evidence of all the atrocities committed by Russian troops. And France promised to bring the DNA lab in order to use it to recognize victims that were either burned or dismantled, let's say, by Russian troops. So they attempted to hide traces of their crimes. So France promised to bring their DNA lab to help us recognize those victims. And funny statement was made by Lavrov today. Lavrov, he is a Minister of Foreign Affairs in Russian Federation. He said that they did not invade Ukraine, which was kind of interesting. So he said that we did not invade Ukraine. We only announced a special military operation after we realized that we have no chance to explain West that they are doing crimes trying to bring Ukraine into NATO. So according to Lavrov, it's not because of Nazi regime in Ukraine, it's because of West. And basically he says that they are using Ukraine as a hostage. And the reporter of BBC asked Lavrov to explain the words of Chief Commissary of United Nations, the Chief of Human Rights Committee of United Nations, that Russians were holding hostages for 28 days in the area of Chernihiv. Among them were 360 people, including 74 children and 5 disabled persons. And because they were held in the basement of a school without water and without toilet, 10 older persons died. And Lavrov basically answered that it was just a fake that was shared by United Nations, because United Nations, in his opinion, they don't speak truth, so they only retranslate what West tells them to say. And another funny statement, I wouldn't call it funny, I would rather call it racist, was made by Dmitry Medvedev today again. So Dmitry Medvedev is chief of the Security Council of Russian Federation, and he is former president of Russian Federation. So he's in his Twitter, because he has Twitter and Telegram. So in his Twitter he said, European lovers of frogs, liver, and pasta love to visit Kiev, which makes no sense. Again, they promised them to bring them to European Union, promised them old howitzers, had a drink, and went home on a train, and everything's fine, but it doesn't bring peace in Ukraine, and the clock is ticking. And basically, I think that Russian politicians should do something with their, racist statements and racist rhetorics in general, because we remember that this above mentioned Lavrov was saying a lot of anti-Semitic crap previously regarding Israel, Jewish people being the biggest anti-Semites in the world and stuff like that. And currently he called French people frog lovers, and he called Italian pasta lovers and stuff like that. And I think that they should do something, because it's us Ukrainians, those who supposed to be Nazi, not Russians. So yeah, that's basically most of the news for today.
Yeah, I saw that you discussed that the French came over and engaged in those investigations. I didn't know they pulled the DNA to help identify those individuals. That's actually really, I would say, nice of them, but it's the least of what we can be doing over there. With all these investigations into war crimes and the atrocities, what or at least what is Ukraine kind of expecting to come of that after this conflict is over? Do they expect extended measures taken against Russia, economic measures taken against Russia, or do they expect anybody to actually pay for those crimes in any way?
Well, of course, we have two targets. Like two goals. One goal is to bring those responsible for those crimes to a trial. And of course, we expect Russians to pay Ukrainians reparations for destroyed civilian structures, for destroyed civilian infrastructure, and of course for people they've killed. Of course, it will not bring them back, but we have a good example of Israel and Germany, and I think that we can use this example in the future against Russia because, again, they have to pay for what they've done. And they can say anything they want in the media, but we know the truth. We have a lot of international experts working here in Ukraine, and yeah, we are collecting evidence. And as Dmitry Medvedev said, the clock is ticking.
Yeah, they're killing themselves right now economically. They're burning up their resources, so hopefully they'll weaken themselves to the point that we can move in and at least force some justice upon them. It won't be easy, but hopefully it'll be done. And then another question I had is just I was watching some videos about they were showing pictures to Russian citizens of the damage that had been done to Ukraine buildings and how the cities were torn apart. And some of them, you get the mix about you expect, where most people just seem to kind of shrug it off. They'd rather buy the lies. But during it, they also mentioned that Russia said that negotiations were underway, which is ridiculous. To think that Ukraine's negotiating with Russia with what they're engaging in. Have you heard anything about those, to put it bluntly, lies, and where that is coming from?
So currently we have no negotiations with Russia whatsoever, except those that are concerning POWs. Except that we don't have any negotiations with Russia because we have our own conditions, and Russia should address those conditions. They should stop firing. They should bring our evacuation convoys and humanitarian aid convoys. They should let them into those occupied cities, and so on and so on. So until they do that, we will not have negotiations with Russia. And of course, we have to. We are expecting those weapons from the West to arrive into Ukraine soon, and after that, we will probably force Russians to negotiate.
Hopefully the economic measures we're taking will start to affect them soon too. We've got people here complaining about the prices of things going up, inflation, but that's the price of war. We may not be over there fighting, but we are engaged in a war nevertheless. We've got a couple of questions from some of the viewers here. One of them is from Sergey. He's a regular here. Welcome back. Says, "Hey, Starsky, I noticed that there were a lot of extremely old and weird guns used by both sides of the war. Have you personally seen any extremely old or weird weapons on the battlefield?"
Okay, so DKG, made in 1938, still good. And the other day we talked with the enforcer, and he said that Browning machine gun is even older, but it still works. As for other guns, this Maxim machine gun is also used a lot in Ukrainian battlefields. Stuff like that. Mostly machine guns, Degtyaryov, Maxim, and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, those are both World War One era weapons, so that's interesting. But then again, anything designed by Browning pretty much stays good. It looks like we've got some super chats rolling in already. So if you're ready, Aimee, I will go ahead and hand over to you.
Yes, please. That would be great. I have a bunch of them. So here we go. The first one is from Springvale Light. For $2 American says, what about the bunkers from the past? And then we have Raven7 for £8.99 says, thanks for all your positivity. I am hoping, like everyone, that heavy weapon systems are imminent. Slava Ukraini. And then we have Level 70 for $6.99 Canadian, who says, are Ukrainian troops in Severodonetsk still getting supplies despite all the bridges there being destroyed? And then we have Vernon Sheldon Witter for $10 American says, you are worth 10 times this much, Starsky. And then we have one final one that says from Marco Endler for €5 says, how long will the Russian people be lied to? Is there no chance of something happening in Russia? Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your questions. As for Severodonetsk, yes, they are being supplied. There are ways to bring supplies to our guys. Again, they are separated by just a river, and there are ways to bring in those supplies like ammunition and food, of course. As for Russian people, well, unless Russian politics change, I would say, because we know that Russia has invented their propaganda, which they have like whole institutions working in this area. And basically, they fill all kinds of their cultural products with propaganda, like their blogs, like their music videos and stuff like that. And it's not like it's a coincidence. It's made on purpose. So fact is, Russian people were brainwashed for almost a century, and it will take some time to change their opinion. Again, even though I study informational warfare for years, but I don't have an answer to a question if it's possible to bring people who were subject to informational warfare back to normal life.
Yeah, we also.
Can I throw? Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say they also had the one about. Did we answer the one about the bunkers from the past? Anything left from past conflict?
Which bunkers are we talking about?
I'm not sure. I think they were just talking about. I think it was just a question in general, because I know there was no. Yeah, it just says about what about the bunkers from the past. I don't think there was anything established on that side of Ukraine as far as bunkers for resistance during World War II or anything.
There are some bunkers, for example, that Grandpa Savkovich from Romanivka, he's had a bunker from the World War II in his yard. And people use this bunker as a shelter from bombs and shells. So people use anything helpful in this case.
That makes sense. I swear that guy is a one-man army. I'll hand over to you, Dave. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure thing. I was just going to ask a question about the PSYOPs that you were just talking about. You said you'd studied this for quite some time. Probably know a lot more about it than I do. Feel free to sort of sideswipe this question if you don't think it's relevant, or just take it as it is. But do you think Russian PSYOPs was used during the Brexit referendum in the UK? And the election of Donald Trump in the US? And if so, was it a warm-up for what we are now witnessing in Ukraine?
I think they kind of did a lot of intrusions into foreign politics. We all remember that there were evidence of Russian hackers trying to hack the network when people voted on presidential elections in the United States, and things like that. Yeah, basically they had their biggest psyops tool that worked during that period of time, which was Russia Today, for example. And currently, thank God, they don't have it anymore functioning on the West. I think I could talk about it, but I'm not really, into, sniffing around foreign politics, because if Brexit was choice of British people, I'm totally fine with that. It's your own business, and elections of Trump, it's business of Americans. I'm not sticking my nose into this.
Yeah, sure thing. I did think about trying to neutralize that question and not have I wasn't trying to lead you in any particular direction. But yeah, I am really interested as to how it works, because I remember studying history at 17. I later dropped it for Japanese, so my my knowledge won't be up to scratch. But I mean, that was almost half a lifetime ago, and I do remember going off over Stalin's Russia and the propaganda surrounding that. Do you think there's a similarity with that going on?
Stalin's propaganda, I can talk about post-Stalin's propaganda, because there was Cold War. There were actually a bunch of, let's say, phases or epochs of their mythological design, let's call it this way. So there was Cold War, and Cold War was basically about weapons race. There was hybrid war that came after the Cold War, and it's basically what we see now. Hybrid war is very distinctive by a broad usage of social media and non-standards approaches to the warfare in general. They realize that informational warfare it can be key to winning this war. We can see the results of that in such areas as Crimea, for example, or Donbass. In Donbass, they've had a lot of Russian media working for decades, and those regions often fell under the influence of Russian media, and it was seen during presidential elections in 2004, or during it was called Orange Revolution back then, or like 2013, 2014 days of Revolution of Dignity in Ukraine. I recall that during Orange Revolution, for example, they had this video that was shared on the television in Donbass, and not only in the Donbass, in central regions of Ukraine as well. And it was picturing Ukraine that was separated in 3 areas. The Donbass was called people of lowest level, like Untermenschen, people in the central Ukraine were called people of secondary level, and people on the West were called like supreme people, and they tried to make people believe that people who stick with Western politics and stuff, with Western culture, they think that they are supreme, and they despise Donbass and despise central Ukraine and stuff like that. And it was literally, hate speech that was shared on the TV in Ukraine. So I think that there's still this video available in YouTube. And they used that a lot. So people in Donbass tend to think that Ukrainians from Western Ukraine despise them for being born in Donbass, which is a bullshit, because people from all regions of Ukraine were protecting Donbass. They were defending Donbass from Russians. Another very distinctive, let's say, very, very distinctive side of this hybrid warfare is using, we call them, let me try to translate it to English. They are not there. So when Putin was asked if there are Russian troops on Donbass in 2014, and if they were in Crimea, he said, they are not there. There's no Russian troops. And we call them, they're not there, их там нет. So they were using basically their regular troops that were hiding their patches, their flags and stuff like that. But of course, they couldn't hide Buryat faces, Chechen beards. Those Kadyrovites were participating in this war since 2014 in Donetsk airport and stuff like that. So they are using this complex approach to reaching their goals, including informational warfare, including classical warfare, and things like that. We must remember that Putin is not a military; he's a KGBist, and KGBists they have this. They want to reach their goal by all means, by all costs. It doesn't matter to them how many people dies, but they should reach their goal and approach and accomplish their mission.
Looks like we've got a few super chats lined up. Are you ready to take those, Aimee?
Yes, I am, please. And we got a donation in as well. So this is really good. We had Valivar who donated Canadian $6.70 twice. Thank you so much for that. I had to make sure that we mentioned this one. This is a really good one. It says, thank you for the weekly updates. Operator Starsky is my favorite news source on the Ukrainian topic. Yes, so thank you so much, Valiver. So thank you. And then we've got Jean-Marc Pagan Owl, who for Canadian $10 as well, says, I saw a video where Ukrainians captured a tank with a red square on it. Are the red square people in Ukraine? Can't remember which country the red square belongs to.
Where am I?
And then we've got level 70 for Canadian $6.99 says, has Ukraine approached Bulgaria to make more Soviet ammunition for them? I heard they're one of the few countries that still make it. And then we have Springvale Light for $2 American who says, I know information warfare makes you forever weird. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, this is so true. So as for red square, you mean that tactical markings on the vehicles. I can't remember exactly which army the red square belongs to. I mean,
I think it's supposed to be Belarus.
I remember that Belarus had a circle.
Ah, okay, then I was misinformed.
Yeah, but in general, wait a second. If you just give me. Just a few seconds. Yeah, so there's Z and V and square for Belarusians. There's Z in the square, and no, I cannot tell you about the red square. Probably some kind of new markings, because I remember that there was Z in this inside the square. Probably some kind of new markings. Probably something like that. As for Bulgaria, yeah, from what I remember, our authorities reached Bulgarian authorities, and I think they asked them about weapons. I don't have information regarding whether they agreed or not, but we will see.
Okay, I'm going to hit a couple of viewer questions really quickly so we don't get those backed up. We've got one from Julie A. Storp. At Starsky, I've heard that you have a lot of casualties. In Norway, they said we received 49 injured soldiers and civilians from Ukraine, and 550 more are coming. Are there other countries helping?
Yeah, a lot of countries are helping. I know that Germany, I know that Italy and Canada and United States. I'm missing a bunch of countries, of course, because I'm old. My memory is so bad. But yeah, we receive a lot of medical help as well from other countries. As for casualties, yes, unfortunately, currently we have a lot of them in the area of Severodonetsk, Lysychansk. Today, Lysychansk was hit by Russian missiles, pretty bad. And unfortunately, yeah, we have a lot of our soldiers dead and wounded in that area because they're bringing a lot of their artillery and concentrated around Severodonetsk and Lysychansk.
Okay, and then we have one from Guy Luckhurst. I normally watch, but would love to know what happened to Medvedchuk after Putin waiting for the exchange.
Medvedchuk, well, from what I know, Putin doesn't care much about him. So Medvedchuk was used as Putin's influencer in Ukraine. He also had access to so-called pipe. So he received oil from Russia, and he was selling it here in Ukraine. And it was all despite the fact that the war was ongoing. Yeah, I remember that he was captured, and currently he is being held by our Security Service of Ukraine.
Okay, and then I had a question that was related to some stuff you said earlier and then last week. I know you spoke a little bit about it, but I believe it was Estonia. It's been a few weeks since I saw it, but they had cut off all of the channels from Russia that came in over cable and everything, and people ran out and started buying antennas to install to catch it coming over the border. And a lot of that, from what I understand, it's not they want the Russian news specifically, but they want just the entertainment channel stuff. And as you know, that they feed it in through that as well. It's part of everything that they broadcast. Have you seen any of that in Ukraine, or have they pretty much everybody just said go to hell Russia and just tuned out everything that they're sending over the border?
We have people still following Russian news here in Ukraine. For example, my neighbor, he likes watching Russian news, and we were smoking the other day, and he said, do you know that Poland wants to capture Ukraine? I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, I saw it on the news. So they have Lviv and part of Western Ukraine pictured on their maps as part of Poland in their trains. And I'm like, were you watching Russian news again? Because because it's crazy. And that's 100% corresponds to rhetorics used by Russian bots like everywhere in the internet. So they claim that Poland wants to invade Ukraine, and we know that Lukashenko claimed that he wants to bring his forces into Ukraine to protect it from invading, forces of Poland, which is kind of sick.
Yeah, it's just a really great battle plan to invade a country to stop it from getting invaded. God. This one, I'll go ahead and I'll venture it. It's sometimes YouTube gets a little tricky on it. It's about COVID. But it's from Hayback. Has COVID caused or posed a problem in your operations since the start of the war?
It disappeared, kind of. It magically disappeared. So we are going to the stores, for example. We are not wearing masks in the stores or in transport because, like, I didn't hear about cases of contracting COVID for quite a while, since probably like last year, since the beginning of this invasion, I would say.
Yeah, I know the army over here had some controversy because they required vaccinations, but some people were upset about that. But you're in such close quarters when you're in a military situation that if somebody else has something that's highly contagious, you're going to end up catching it. So I fully understand why they did push that. I'm glad you're not seeing too much of it over there. We're just now struggling to get over the herd immunity line some places in the United States.
Yeah. Well, our soldiers have been vaccinated, of course, and even despite the fact that we don't care about COVID as much as we did previously, but still we care enough to make those booster vaccines, And for example, my father wants to receive one, so I will bring him to hospital like probably next month.
Oh yeah, we sorry, I'm just grabbing this question really quickly, and it looks like we've got a few super chats up. Do you want to take care of those, Aimee, while I take a look at this next question really quickly?
Absolutely, that would be great. Thank you. I have a few, so here we go. Well, the first one was from Paul Smalzer for $5 American. Says, can you speak to the reports of farmers having to dump their food by Russians? And then Marco Endler for €5 says, if the war should last longer, a change to NATO weapons across all genres is necessary. What is your opinion on this, and can it be done in time? And then we had one other one as well pop through. That one was from Susan Sprague for Canadian $10. Says, hey, Andrew, Denis Davidoff said in a live stream today they had tried to get a hold of you but couldn't find contact info. Thank you very much, everybody.
Pardon, can you please repeat the last one about the Davidoff?
Oh, sure. That one was, let me get back to that page. It is from Susan Sprague. She says, Denis Davidoff said on a live stream today they tried to get a hold of you but couldn't find contact information.
So Dennis should really check his messages on Instagram because I tried to reach him as well. And as for the farmers, so the information that I have, it's not regarding farmers, but we have the information that Russian puppet Aksionov leader of occupied Crimea, he said that they are using the grain that was captured in Ukraine, basically stolen from Ukrainian grain storages. They will be using this food to this grain to provide food for Crimeans and Russian troops, and of course sell it, if possible, of course. Which basically means that he acknowledges that they are stealing Ukrainian grain. As for farmers, we've had information that they were ordered to bring their supplies to Russian troops according to needs of their occupiers' army. As for the war, as for those weapons, I think that after the war in Ukraine is finished, we will have like probably most weapons in Europe located on our territory. I have no idea what to do with it. So probably, I don't know, probably we'll have to exchange it or whatever, or give it back. Let's just think about it after this war ends, because currently we need that. We need those weapons a lot.
Well, you're also going to need them in the aftermath, because basically that's the last slot, almost the last slot in a NATO wall between Europe and Russia. So hopefully we can get you guys into NATO and draw the line right there.
Yeah, of course, it would be great.
Let's see. We've got one. It's actually from Commander 401, wanting to know about the manipulation of religion at the various stages, ratcheting it up in the Kremlin and everything, because I know that they had been using the church to just feed the lies like they have everything else. And does the pro-Russian propaganda coming out of religion start in 2014? And sorry, I'm trying to parse this together. Said that, what about the Everett stuff with Rick Wiles calling Russian nuclear fire down on America? I think those are American religious institutions. Have you heard anything about any of that?
Yeah, so manipulation of religion in Russia and specifically on the territory of Ukraine was used since, I don't know, since 90s probably. So there's two main churches in Ukraine. It's Orthodox Ukrainian Church, then Orthodox Russian Church, and the difference between them is basically language. That's it. And there's also Greek Catholic and Roman Catholic Church in Ukraine. I would say Greek Catholic and Roman Catholic Church have like 50% of followers combined, and probably 50% of followers, yeah, for Orthodox and Orthodox Ukrainian and Russian churches. However, probably even more than that. I think that Orthodox religion in Ukraine is prevailing. And yeah, of course, we have Muslim people here. We have Jewish here. We have like a bunch of other religions, like Buddhist religion, and I think how you call the followers of Krishna?
Hindus?
Yeah, Hindus. There's a lot of them here. And yeah, but the prevailing church is Russian and Ukrainian Orthodox churches. And it's a well-known fact in post-Soviet countries that those people who were employed in Orthodox Church back in the USSR times were basically KGB agents, because religion was prohibited back in Soviet times. And of course, people would go and confess to, those monks, and they would pass their information to KGB. This is how how it worked back in the USSR times. After that, Russian Church remained basically in Ukraine after the fall of USSR, after the collapse of USSR. And Ukrainian Church was reborn. Why? Because, oh my God, I have to explain you the whole history. So, in the 12th century, I believe, there was this invasion in Ukraine by forces of Chinggis Khan, Khan Bati, and their people coming from the east. And in Ukraine, in Kiev, there was this cradle of Orthodox religion that started probably like 1,000 years ago. So it was located in Pecherska Lavra, which is a huge historical complex here in Kiev. And in order to save those holy people and their creeds, their basis of their religion, they had to run away from Kiev to Novgorod. And in Novgorod, basically those territories were like just populated, by our people from Kiev and Rus. So they escaped. They waited until this invasion was over, and they when they returned, but they already returned as like another church. So it wasn't Ukrainian anymore. It was kind of Russian church, which is like crazy. Anyways, so they returned, and currently they represent, or try to represent, that very first church that was in Ukraine like 1,000 years ago. And the thing is that Russian Patriarch Kirill, who, by the way, got sanctions placed on him like recently, like today, probably yesterday. So he was the favorite holy man of Putin himself. And this man he used to bring a lot of money collected by Russian church in Ukraine back to Russia. We're talking about millions of dollars. And he was recently prohibited in Ukraine. Again, why it happened recently? Because Ukrainian state, our authorities, we don't control our religion, and we are trying to avoid, any kinds of controlling or censoring religion in Ukraine, because we're a democratic country. But after beginning of this war, we realized that it was used a lot in the informational warfare, in manipulations, because people come to this church, they hear what those men are saying, and basically they're saying that West is evil, and they are trying to enslave Slavic people, and we should stick to Russia and stuff like that. A lot of Russian monks were welcoming Russian troops during the beginning of this war back in 2014. They're doing it a lot today. in Hostomel, for example, there was this monk of Russian church who even pointed at people who had pro-Ukrainian political views, and they were later captured by Russian troops. Currently this church is prohibited in Ukraine. A lot of Russian church monks join Ukrainian church, so they switch to Ukrainian church. And as I said, Patriarch Kirill, leader of Russian church in Russia, has sanctions placed on him, like probably today, I think.
Yeah, I had seen a news story talking. This has been a month ago, maybe a little more. It was people are upset because President Zelensky had coordinated to actually separate the Ukrainian Orthodox Church from the Russian Orthodox Church, given that they were supporting the war and feeding the lies and everything. And there were some people seriously upset about that. And here in the United States, we separate government and religion. There are some debates back and forth, but anything that direct, an association that direct wouldn't be allowed. But I've got to say, in a country where it's so tied together, I absolutely support Zelensky doing that, because it's the same thing as cutting off the cable feeds and the information feeds. It's critical to stop those lies from spreading within the country.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. And by the way, a lot of ultra-conservative, I would say, extremist organizations from Donbass, from Russia, were used as guards for Russian church in Ukraine. So they had those combat enforcers, I would say, coming from those partly religious paramilitary organizations. They were calling them Donsky Cossacks, and a lot of them joined Russian troops on the war in Donbass. And basically we've had them fighting against us in Donbass and guarding Russian church in Kiev, which may sound weird to you, but yeah, that's reality.
Yeah, we kind of all came over here because we hated each other's religions, so
Yeah.
we kind of made it a part of the Constitution.
Yeah, it's like, it's like your troops are fighting in another country against ISIS, and meanwhile some people with ISIS patches are guarding some religious sites in your country. That's how weird it looks, and we've had just that in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's any country looks weird to another country. The set of ethical and cultural standards, just it can seem odd. That's why I try to stay open-minded about it. I can't travel, so I like the world to come to me. It looks like we've got, I think, 3 super chats lined up, Amy. Do you want to hit those now?
Yes, please, if I may. Thank you. We've got the first one from Springvale Light for $2 American says, "What good have attorneys done for war?" That's a good point. Mr. Hominoid for Australian $5 gives, "Barbecue awaits Starsky Max friends when you get to Australia. How's Max, Hutch, and can Starsky surf? Russ McDonald's bought by Russ franchiser. How did he, Putin?" And then we have Donny Boy 73 for Canadian $5 says, "Keep up the good work, Starsky. Greetings from Canada." And then we had a donation come in from Julie Astorp. She donated $5 Canadian and says, "Hello from Norway. Our government said that Norway have received injured soldiers and civilians for treatment from Ukraine. In 2 days, 49 and 550 more will come. Are there other countries helping also with casualties? How is the situation for your hospitals?"
I will start with the beginning. Attorneys. So I met a bunch of military attorneys in Donbass back in probably 2015. It was a funny meeting, by the way, because we came to the club in order to assess, the area. So we were patrolling, and it was like that. There's a front line, and like 8 kilometers away from the front line, people are living peaceful life. They have clubs, music playing, stuff like that. Everything works. So that was situation since 2014 until February this year. And we came to the club to see if everything's okay. And this military attorney started yelling at us, like, what the hell are we doing here with weapons? And yeah, he was a bit crazy. But other than that, I cannot tell you a lot about attorneys because luckily I don't meet a lot of them. As for barbecue in Australia, 100% we got to do that. And yeah, I can definitely serve and stuff. As for Max, he returned from Severodonetsk for a while. He brought me some materials to work with, like videos and some information. So we're kind of processing it at this point. And there was a funny story actually. So I've had this live on the TV. Journalists contacted me and asked whether I can answer some questions, and it was like instantaneously, so I wasn't much prepared. And because Max lived in Hostomel, and his place is kind of trashed after Russian invasion, he stays at my apartment, and he was sleeping. So this live happened like at 5 a.m. or something like that. We have a lot of those like every day. And I was answering questions and yada yada. And then I was using my phone and Skype, to communicate. And by the end of this live, they thanked me and stuff like that. I thanked them for life, and I tapped on my camera, in this Skype. So the camera switched from selfie camera to the back camera, and they saw like a bed with some naked dude sleeping on it. Which put my female audience at danger. Put me in danger of losing my female audience a lot, which was kind of funny. So yeah, Max feels fine. He's like recovering a bit, but I think that he will be fine. As for Norway, by the way, I talked to our artillerists. They say that they received a bunch of artillery shells from Norway, and they said that they opened boxes and there were handwritings on the shells saying just one word, MH17.
The plane that was shot down.
Yeah.
I forgot what that was. Indonesia? Malaysia?
Yeah, it was Malaysian Airlines.
Malaysia,
the flight coming from Norway to Malaysia, and this plane was shot down by Russian anti-air system located in Donbass. And basically, the theory is that they were expecting a military plane, or they were trying to shoot down Russian plane and blame Ukrainian side. But as I call it, some unexpected crazy shit happened. And they have killed almost 300 people with kids, and there were a lot of casualties. It was horrible. Russians looted the area And there were cases when Russians were selling cosmetics and iPhones that they found on the crash site. They were selling them on the internet. There's a lot of those cases that are documented, that they're on internet, and that's one of the reasons why we call them orcs.
That's disgusting, but that's what you get out of a country when they keep their people so impoverished that they just do anything for cash. I mean, it's very intentional, the low income level they keep them at.
Yeah, they currently sell a lot of stuff that they have stolen in Ukraine, like laundry machines, like clothes, civilian clothes that were looted in areas of Irpin, Bucha. So yeah, I remember that I have read an article. So Russians have sent like tons of looted stuff through mail from Belarus to Russia. And funny fact is that they at some point they came to this mail office, and our hackers have cracked their video cameras. They received access to their video cameras, and they have faces of those looters, including their whole information, like where they live, their names, and stuff like that. Yeah, we made this information public as well.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. The list of atrocities just keeps getting longer every time, you start digging into what the Russians are up to. But yeah, you didn't answer the one question. Can you surf?
Yeah, I can, 100%.
Nice.
Not the internet.
So I'd say you might want to learn to dive and go take a tour of the Moskva.
Yeah.
We've got another one from Sergey. Simple question to Starsky. What is the better Soviet caliber, in your opinion, the 7.62 or the 5.45?
Well, we've been talking about it. So 5.45 is good in terms of CQB, urban warfare, because it gives some pretty good ricochets. So you can literally shoot a magazine into a window with bad guys, and you can expect them to be at least wounded by ricochet. But again, it's very dangerous to use in areas full of civilians, again, because of that ricochet. As for 7.62, it's preferably to use because this caliber is good in a green area. I mean, like forests. So if a bad guy is hiding behind the bush, there's a big chance that your 5.45 won't reach this guy through bush, because those bullets have changed the center of weight and they tumble a lot. While 7.62 do their job very well, penetrating everything. The downside to 7.62 is that you can carry less ammunition. So with 5.45 you can have more ammunition because those rounds are smaller. And on the other hand, 5.45 has higher velocity, higher range of direct shot comparing to 7.62. Well, it depends, not like we basically have convenient range of using our rifles. I would say a distance of between 50 meters to like 400 meters. I would say that at the distance of 400 meters, you can basically aim and shoot and be confident that you will hit your target if you have proper training. So it doesn't matter much what you're using, but you have to keep in mind the differences between those calibers.
Yeah, I know over here, then they're changing now. They're actually starting to change up weaponry. They've got this newest one called the Spear coming out, but for the longest time they ran the 5.56 through the M16s, M4s, and then for the squad assault weapons, they're running the 7.62. Do you guys do that, or do you have the same ammunition across the board in your units?
We have 7.62 by 54, I believe, used by our machine gunners and our snipers. So snipers are machine gunners' best friends. Why? Because when they run out of ammo, they can use rounds from machine gun. They are not as precise, and they damage the weapons a bit. But we are talking about SPD, old Soviet sniper rifle, and from what I know, currently only Russian and pro-Russian troops are using those, because we have what we call UR-10, which is basically AR-10 stoner rifles. And we are using a lot of 308, 338 calibers and 50 caliber rifles as well. I'm talking about my brigade and snipers from other units of armed forces.
Yeah, those 50 calibers are nasty, right through an engine block.
Yeah.
We've got a question from Vitaly. Does Starsky know if Ukraine has any plans or strategies on how to get the 1 million plus Ukrainians that were forcibly deported to Russia, how to get them back?
It's a good question. We know exactly that Russians have created 66, I believe. Currently, it's probably more filtration camps for Ukrainians that are forcefully deported to Russia, and they are located in so-called depressive regions. A lot of those civilians don't have a lot of funds to travel back to Ukraine, and it's kind of hard to travel back to Ukraine at this point because our borders are closed, so they have to make all the way from Russia through Turkey probably, and to Poland in order to return. Yeah, I think that we will talk about this probably after war, because currently we believe that at least those people are not being shot at.
Yeah, anywhere out of the firing line is kind of preferable, but it should be stated, they can call them different things, but those are concentration camps. They may not be labor camps or death camps, but that's a concentration camp, and that is horrific.
We have information that there's some kind of underground movement in Russia that collects money for Ukrainians to return them to Ukraine. And of course, it's illegal in Russia. That's why they don't talk much about it. But there's this movement of people who help them.
I am normally a law-abiding citizen, but I absolutely support them violating the law in order to do that.
Yeah.
Let's see, we've got a question from Nancy. Will the rules of NATO allow military disturbances? Will the rules of NATO about military disturbances not allow joining NATO because Russia will continue to cause trouble for Ukraine indefinitely? think she's asking, are they not joining NATO because they're afraid it'll escalate the war and extend it?
It could be one of the reasons, of course. So I cannot judge from my level, but this could be one of the reasons, of course. We have very close partnership with NATO countries. We have like my brigade has participated in multiple international military exercise with NATO forces, and from what I can say, we are totally prepared to act as part of multinational brigade or army, let's call it this way, which basically is basis for any NATO country. NATO standards are made for specific units to be able to do their tasks as part of multinational army. So I think that it highly depends on the results of this war. We gotta make sure that Russians will not be able to attack us in the future, and we gotta be sure that all our territories are back under our control, and we are not at war with Russia anymore in order to be able to join NATO.
Yeah, there's a hesitancy on everybody's part to pick up a nation that's at war as a part of NATO, and I understand it to a degree, but at the same time, something more needs to be done, morally speaking.
Yeah, well, you remember that Lavrov and Medvedev and other politicians in Russia accused West. So Ukraine is not their biggest enemy. They are convinced that they should destroy Western civilization and bring this new Russian world, this new order, to make sure that there is peace on Earth. Otherwise, they will attempt to conquer the world. I would say, 100%. We have like multiple cases, like poisoning of Skripal family in Salisbury, for example. We all remember that. We have Russian agents and spies acting all over Europe. And a couple of months ago, during this the beginning of this invasion, our security service has hacked their resources, and they managed to discover a list of Russian spies currently acting in Russia and on the West. So there's, I believe, probably 400 men.
It is an interesting point of fact that people think that spying is a Cold War era kind of activity, but no, it's been going on since then. And I think one of the reasons for that is the way it gets downplayed in Bond films and things like that, where the enemy is now no longer the Russians or the Chinese. It's just some rich guy who just wants to take over the world. No, spying is still a thing.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, most modern nations, they have intelligence agencies to collect information, but they don't spread it as badly as Russia does. It's ridiculous how hard they've worked to insert information into especially social media to get the outcomes that they want. Then they complain about Western civilization. The reality is that Ruski Mir, it's Western civilization minus all the freedom at this point.
One interesting thing that you can see in Russian politicians is that they adopted this behavior of KGB agent Putin. So in KGB schools, for example, they are taught, to deny everything. Like even when you're captured in a bed with your friend's wife, you still have to deny everything. It wasn't me, it wasn't her, you are not you, and stuff like that. And basically, this kind of behavior was adopted by their politicians, their people. So again, remember Lavrov that said that they did not invade Ukraine; it was a dream. You had a bad dream and stuff like that. It's not the way you call it and stuff. So they learned to deny everything, and they were never acknowledge their fails, because Moscow ship didn't sink. It performed a negative surfacing.
It became an impromptu submarine.
Yeah. And it was according to plan, of course.
Yeah, built in. Question from Ashley Fitzsimmons. With Belarusians now in Ukraine as Belarusian tanks have been captured, do you believe Belarus and the RF will make a move on the Suwalki Gap linking up Kaliningrad?
I think it's possible. It's possible because some of Russian politicians were talking about it. I think it was, wait a second, it was Nevzorov, by the way. So there's this famous movie director, that currently supports Ukraine, of course, because it's popular. But he was a big fan of Putin. He was a big fan of invasion into Baltic countries, and he talked about it a lot previously, like years ago. It's possible, of course. Again, we're talking about a country that wants to bring its order into Europe, into West in general.
And then we've got one from Rodent, one of our fellow shill troublemakers. Starsky, do you have a preferred charity to donate to in helping with the refugees of war?
I'm not very familiar with charities that help refugees. I'm more familiar with charities helping soldiers. We are talking about such funds as Come Back Alive, which is probably the most famous one in Ukraine. There's a charity called Fond of Serhiy Pritula. He is one of our opinion makers here in Ukraine. He's also a stand-up comedian, which is interesting coincidence. But because I'm a military, I'm more into more connected to such things, not refugees, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah, and we've got some resources too that individuals can donate to. Let's see. It's two questions really close together. They can almost be answered at the same time. First one from John B. Are there any weapons that are coming in the near future from the West that can hit the Crimean Bridge? And then Devrin Korkmaz, any news about heavy weapons, Starsky?
Yeah, we have news. We have news that our artillerists are finishing their training, and we're talking like hundreds of artillerists. So basically, we will have those heavy weapons very soon, according to forecasts from our experts, probably around the end of this month, probably in 20th of June. As for Crimean Bridge, well, it's gonna be very hard to destroy it, even using things like HIMARS, simply because it's not an easy target. You gotta use aviation and guided bombs or guided missiles like Tomahawks in order to destroy the Crimean Bridge, and you gotta use a bunch of them. Unfortunately, we don't have those currently here. We have aviation, but there's a lot of anti-air defense located in Crimea, and not only those that were brought by Russians, but also those that were there in Crimea when it was controlled by Ukrainian side. So there's a very thick, very effective anti-air defense in that area, and it's very, very hard to reach that bridge, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know you've said in the past that kind of the naval resistance is an issue. Then that's the thing. You can get ground troops from citizens. You can give them firearms. It's not extraordinarily hard, but you can't build a battleship out of somebody's garage. So really need assistance from the West in taking care of that at some point. Let's see, we've got a few super chats up, so I'm going to go ahead and hand off to Aimee, and then we're going to do some panel questions and discussion.
Yes, please. We do. We have a few super chats here, some really quick, easy ones. Springvale Light for $2 American says informational warfare sounds weird to me. Diffuse 56 for $5 American says, hi Starsky and greetings from the Enforcers Leaf Spring Army, Slava Ukraini. Then we have Danan 85 for €2. Had no message, but if you have a question, please let us know and we'll make sure it gets highlighted. We have one from Akim Rao for €5 who says, hey, Aimee, can you please read out only one super chat at a time? This will help much better getting the question. Thank you. We'll give it the old college try. And then we have Level 70 for Canadian $6.99 who does have a question. When do you think the turning point of the war will be given the current rate of weapons deliveries from the West? Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, informational warfare is a weird business, indeed. Basically, you can think about it like this. You don't have to conquer another country using your own troops if you make people in this country fight each other. And we've had a lot of that. So we've had a lot of cases when, for example, pro-Russian people who lived all their lives in Ukraine suddenly decided that, Donbass was always a separate country, and we were all like, what are you talking about? And they're like, Donbass was always separate. And we were like, guys, you were attending same football games, you were studying same subjects in the same schools as us. Why did you even decide that Donbass is a separate country? And it happened like in a decade, basically. So this is how informational warfare works. And my biggest fear was that, we will have a bunch of Russian media, a bunch of Russian political parties here in Ukraine, and they will keep brainwashing people, and we will start literally fighting each other. And that's basically the end of Ukrainian state. But Putin decided to launch missiles. And missiles were more convincing than Russian media. And by doing this, he saved Ukrainians from his most powerful weapon, from his propaganda. Big hugs to Livspring Army. And as for turning point of this war, I think it's predicted actually by our military leaders, by our generals, that we expect situation to change dramatically, probably by the end of this summer. But it, of course, depends on the rate of delivery weapons to Ukraine.
Hopefully we can get that accomplished quickly. I know that there's also been some trouble in country with deliveries to the front of the war, but hopefully soon. Okay, let's hand it over for some panel questions. Who is going to be up first? Dave or Gary?
I'm happy to do it. Yeah.
Sweet.
Sure thing. So I'm interested in how you deal with mental health in a war zone. It's something we haven't discussed, I think, over our many different weeks interviewing you. So do you have access to therapists and that sort of thing for depression and post-traumatic stress?
Yeah, we have our combat psychologists working in the area with soldiers. I'm talking about military psychologists, our officers of psychology service, and they help a lot actually. They're professionals, and I know a lot of them. They're doing their job very well.
Don't they just shout at you and tell you to buck up?
No, that's
a normal military solution to that sort of thing.
That's what our surgeons do, and in many cases, our surgeons, are great substitution to military psychologists.
Slap them in the head with gloves like General Patton did when they've got shell shock.
Are you some kind of pussy? Load that weapon! Fire that weapon! Kill all the Ruskies, you bastard! That kind of thing.
There's this very touching story. So there was some pretty nasty shelling, and our troops had to move back from their positions. And our colonel was there with his troops, and they noticed that one soldier is missing. So he went into the trench, and he found the soldier just sitting there. And at first, colonel thought that this soldier had, the stupor. But the soldier said, "No, I'm fine. The only problem is, I peed my pants, which is normal in the fight. Sometimes you poop, and it's kind of normal psychological reaction." And the colonel said, "Wait a minute." He found a bucket of water. He splashed it on his own pants, and he said, "Okay, let's go. Don't worry about others," which is kind of touching. So that's a very interesting story.
Nice. Yeah, they when I was in high school, we did JROTC, and we had a sergeant that he'd been to war, and he said straight up, he's like, when they start shooting at you, he's like, you will, it doesn't matter if your wife is next to you in there and you love her to death and you die for her. He's like, your first instinct is fear. He's like, but he said you have to overcome that in order to fight back. And yeah, I'm not surprised that they defecate themselves or urinate on themselves, but especially with artillery, because if you're, it's even worse in a forest setting because it turns the landscape against you. It turns trees into shrapnel. The ground explodes. The best thing you can do is try to get down into a pit to avoid anything coming off of it. But it's got to be a horrific nightmare.
Yeah, and in most cases you don't even notice it. Like pooping or pissing. It's like later after the combat you realize that, oh shit. um, and yeah, as for the terrain, you're totally right. So we had one of our soldiers back in 2019 wounded by a gravel. So they held their position near the railway, and there are those stones, those little stones, and the shell exploded right on the railway, and he was wounded by a small stone, not the fragment, but the stone. But luckily, he's okay now.
Yeah,
Sheesh.
thankfully, my grandfather, he fought in World War II, and
Yeah.
he received shrapnel from the shell itself, and he was with him to the day he died. But
Yeah,
yeah.
same here with my grandfather. So he was hit 3 times in 3 different tanks. He was a tank commander, and he was hit 3 times, and the third time was very nasty. So he received a lot of fragments of his own tank into his body, and he carried like 20 something big fragments and like 100 of smaller fragments until he died.
I imagine they didn't schedule
Yeah.
him for any MRIs. Man,
Yeah.
that's crazy. 3 times. Like after the first time to go back, it's that takes balls. But 3 times, damn.
It was a crazy story. So he was wounded, but he was unconscious, but he was saved by his driver, because the cannon operator died instantly, and he received most of those fragments. And because my grandfather was sitting behind him, like on the other side of him, he received a minority of those fragments. He went unconscious, and the driver, who was totally fine, he dragged my grandpa out of tank, and of course they were in the middle of combat, and he dragged him back to their troops. So he had to crawl all that way, dragging my grandpa. And my grandpa was 18, basically. And while doing that, while dragging him back to their troops, this driver received a bullet into his foot, a machine gun bullet. And yeah, then my grandpa got back. He said, like while lying down on the table in the field hospital, he returned to his consciousness, and he heard a surgeon saying that he wants to amputate his arm because it was wounded really bad. So he said, "You're not doing that. I'm a village boy, and I will somehow, find my, get employed as a gardener or whatever. I will plant stuff, but I don't want you to cut my hand, cut my arm, because I will be unable to work." And surgeon said that no, we have to do that because otherwise, it will you will lose your hand anyways. And the grandpa took out his pistol and said, "You're not doing that." So
Yeah.
then the surgeon had to still remove a lot of fragments and remove a lot of damaged tissues from his arm, and they had no anesthesia. So my grandpa took a glass of spirit, and later he said that it was like the most painful day in his life. So he didn't like to, remember that day.
I bet.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
talked
No
about
kidding.
that. Yeah,
Couldn't agree.
we've talked about that some before. And then that older soldiers, like fathers and grandfathers that were in World War II. I'm not sure about Vietnam because I haven't spoken to anybody, but they don't like to talk about it. And the best chances you've got are like with my grandfather, my uncle would go to a yearly breakfast that they had with all of his unit members that were still alive. And that's the only chance that we ever heard to learn the stories of what happened, because he just didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to tell people. And I can understand why. That's horrific.
They're not actually very good at opening up the stories to each other as well. They still hold back an awful lot of information, their own inner feelings. They will share stories, but you know what I mean? They hold a lot back, their feelings.
They say PTSD from soldiers, a lot of PTSD cases, it's assumed that it's things you've seen done, but soldiers, it's things that they have done that they never thought that they would do. And they have trouble dealing with that. So, but I mean, it's war. You have to do what you have to do to survive. Yeah, there are lines, but sometimes when you draw those lines, it's deciding to die. So that's not exactly an easy decision to make.
Yeah,
totally.
My grandfather was at Alamein in World War II. And he came back to Aberdeen to his barracks. He was wounded out, and he was walking past the newspaper office when they had like photographs in the window of lots and lots of people from the war, and there was a photograph with him and his entire cannon crew or his artillery crew, and just after that photograph was taken, they were attacked in an ambush, and all of them, apart from my grandfather, were killed. So just seeing that photograph was just like it's hard. I mean, what can you do?
So we had an officer in our brigade, Alexander Markiv, and he had quite a story. So in 2014. His whole platoon was killed in a shelling, and he only survived. And on 2019, in 2019, in the Svetlodarsk Bulge, he was shot. So he was shot in the face from a heavy machine gun. I think that he received a ricochet or something, because being shot in the head with the heavy machine gun, it's basically you're 100% dead. So he probably received a ricochet into his face, and he even remained conscious for quite a while. Our guys evacuated him from the position, and he was alive. He couldn't talk much because he lost his jaws, but and he couldn't see anything. Well, he literally lost his face, but he was conscious. He could hear. And they brought him to the evacuation car and brought him to the hospital, and they did it very fast, so they were sure that he'll be all right. But on the surgeon's table, he died, unfortunately, because of bleeding in the brain. And I had to explain his little son, because his son was an autist, and his doctors told him that told his mother that he needs somebody who knew his father, some military, to tell him the way he died. Why? Because his father was buried in the closed coffin, because of his face. And this boy, it was weird, you know. On one hand, he was like, he knew that his father died. On the other hand, he was often asking his mother, like, where's our dad? Like, when will he return home and stuff. So she asked me to tell this kid, he was 12, I believe, how did his father die. And I can say that it was the most difficult experience in my life, basically.
Yeah, that's a hard one to follow up. Did anybody also on the panel have any questions or anything?
Well, I wanted to, yeah, I've got something else on that. So just to finish off on the mental health thing, do you think it's still treated, or should I say, yeah, is it still treated with a sort of mark of disrespect, or is it just starting to be treated with the same respect as medics are for physical injury?
I can say that it's treated with respect. We have like a lot of volunteer organizations that work with veterans as well as servicemen. So it's like from religious organizations to just, you know, public organizations, to international organizations. And this problem is well recognized here in Ukraine since 2014.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. I mean, I don't know what you used to think, DK, but it seems to be something that is constantly now being discussed, particularly amongst the England football team and that sort of thing, especially when it comes to online abuse. But that's obviously slightly different to a war zone.
The England football team, fuck them. They get paid shitloads of money. These guys are getting shot at.
You know what I mean? It's still mental health. It's still, you know, abuse and that sort of thing. I think DK's leading the charge.
Yeah, I mean, it's very well, yeah. I'm the most mental one here. No, I think mental health is a very, very, very important subject to talk about, and it does get swept away on the side, you know, quite often. Yeah, I mean, there was a documentary last night about the Falklands, and there was interviews with all these ex-veterans of the Falklands War, and you could tell they were suffering, and there was no mental health for them at all, no PTSD at all. It wasn't even a fucking word for them, you know, back then. So yeah, it's important to talk about, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do mental health experts get the same kind of respect as medical officers? I think that would be a tough one, because the actual surgeons and people who are saving lives, they also need mental health care too. Yeah, just going with what they do.
Yeah, it is a tricky one.
We've had soldiers coming back since 2001 in the war of Afghanistan, and then we engaged in Iraq. But we've been dealing with it because they're coming back with PTSD, and there are some of them so bad that they go catatonic. They cannot function. So it's a huge topic here. Now it's starting to come up too with police officers, because we've had, you know, Black Lives Matter versus Back the Blue. And a lot of police conduct is caused by psychological trauma. So it needs more of a spotlight than it gets. But like everything, it takes time.
Yeah. Mind you, these days, just being a Twitter account owner, need fucking mental health issues with that. So it's just spreading everywhere. God damn it. We're all going mad.
I
Yeah,
would say
even psychologists require, and I know for sure that it's required for them to attend their own psychologists, to receive treatment.
And do those psychologists see another higher up psychologist? Do we get to like the one top psychologist who looks after everybody?
It's just a room full of people lying down. Just
Yeah, it's like that rhetorical question, like if dentists attend dentists.
well, one psychologist treats the other, and then they switch, and the first one gets on the couch, and then they take it from there. It looks like we've got a few super chats up, so I'm going to hand over to Aimee to take care of those, and then I actually had a question as well.
Sure. Thank you so much. We do have 3 supers to get through here. Let me see what we've got. We've got Boston Dan 77 for $4.99 says the invaded Russians have shown textbook orc behavior. Have you considered a trail of consumer electronics leading these orcs into a steel cage? I like that one. And then we have Commander 401 for $5 American says Russia is doing the same thing in America that they were doing to Ukraine. Sadly, we have politicians in America who openly embrace the Kremlin, and that's true. And then the last one was from Tina Bagheri for $4.99 American, who says, Starsky, you look like you have lost weight. This mama is worried. Please be sure to take care of yourself. Oh, thank you so much, everybody.
Embracing Russia and supporting Russia is so crazy. It's like embracing rapists, like embracing looters. It's like embracing murder, in my opinion. And whenever people post supportive comments to Russians, like on my channel, for example, it looks so miserable, like it's the same as supporting rapists, basically. As for my weight, it's fine, I assure you. Yeah, I've lost some weight. I lost probably.
Well, it's all that shitting you do when the shells come over.
Yeah, partially that, and of course, because of this invasion, I'm not going to gym anymore. But I returned to my gym like this week, fortunately. Not sure how much time I will have to attend it, because I may get sent to Donbass. It depends on my commander's decision, of course. But yeah, I'm doing my best to get back into shape. Again, I feel totally fine. Sometimes I'm not rested well, but other than that, I'm fine totally.
Well, MREs aren't exactly the most nourishing meal in the world either.
They're fine. They're fine.
So the question I had, when we talked a little bit about in the past, is locals who organize and they form their own military units, which has happened a lot over there. Over here, we have what's called a National Guard, and you're in your nation's National Guard. It's organized by the state here and everything. But when those units organize, do they stay informal and are just within their local area protecting it, or do they get absorbed into a military unit where they're provided with no, uniforms, weapons, and other supplies?
Yeah, so we have territorial defense, which is commanded by our armed forces, and mostly they are stationed locally. But according to our legislation, they can be relocated to other areas. I have no idea how effective will that be, but yeah, they can be relocated. There's always so-called self-defense groups in our towns and around. And those guys are armed with their own weapons, and they cooperate with police and with armed service.
Okay. And then I've got a question here. It's a viewer question from Ugly German Truths. It says the Ukrainian army recently reported that about 39,000 female soldiers volunteered and 4,000 are in commanding positions. Is it tougher when a female comrade gets wounded or killed?
It's pretty tough, I would say. So we have a squad leader in my brigade. She's a female, and her soldiers totally love her because she's a very tough sergeant. And actually, we're meeting tomorrow. So female sergeants and female fighters in general must be very tough, in my opinion, as a former sergeant. Why? Because they have to be physically fit, for example, to carry a lot of ammunition, armor, and weapons. And of course, they should be able to save their wounded comrades on the battlefield. And like in my opinion, it's so cool that we have them, because again, like as a sergeant and based on my own observations, female soldiers are very, very tough, and they don't no, it's like they have better resistance to stress than men for some reason. I don't know why, but it's very cool. On the other hand, of course, we are very sorry when our comrades die. It's natural, and mother dies. Of course, it's a big tragedy, not only for their parents, but also for their children. A lot of our soldiers are very young. They are like 23, 25 years old in my brigade. A lot of them don't have kids. And in Ukraine, young families, I'm talking like young couples, they usually have kids. So when female soldier dies, it's a big tragedy for her family, for our military family. So yeah, it's very bad.
Okay, and then we've got one last question on board at the moment, and this one, feel free to censor your answer to it because it does ask about somewhat privileged information, but part of it is kind of interesting. From Fran Ferrer, do you have any information about sabotage actions performed in Russian territory? Which I don't know if you're going to have any information or be able to share that. And then, or some kind of an organized resistance, which I know you've spoken about the Russian soldiers who came over to fight, but do you know if there are any military units within Russia from their citizens that are fighting back?
I know exactly that there are people in Russia who don't want to fight in Ukraine for obvious reasons. And we have information that a lot of their enlistment offices were destroyed or burned down by some unknown people. And probably there's some kind of resistance happening on the territory of Russia. Of course, it's just a minority. And unfortunately, it's not, a massive movement In order to make it massive, we should spend as much money as Russia spends on propaganda on daily basis, and that's millions of dollars. We don't have that kind of money. But luckily, yeah, there are some conscious people there.
Well, luckily, if we decide to do it, the Russians are fairly gullible, so it'll probably work. We've got a few super chats lined up, so I'm going to hand over to Aimee to take care of those.
Yes, please. We do. We had 3 come in while I was doing the other 3. So we have one from Jean-Marc Pagan Owl for Canadian $10. Says Macron keeps talking about how Ukraine should go to peace talks and Turkey, and said they arranged to get Ukraine the grain to the needy. Any opinion? Have mine in Canada. Mr. Hominoid for Australian $5 says, will Max donate his naked photo as a calendar to raise more vets funds? Use a daisy to cover his bits. If 200 Tic Tac UFOs swarmed Kremlin, Putin give up. Thank you so much. Then we have Level 70 who donated Canadian $6.99, says, if the Russians are orcs, does that make Starsky Frodo? Thank you so much. Oops, it looks like we have something else coming in. Dick is typing, but I'll let you answer those first. Thank you.
According to information of from one of our political experts here in Ukraine, I think his last name is Demidov, something like that. So he said that, yeah, partially those European leaders who arrived today, they had this, not all of them, but people like President Macron, they had on mind to try to convince our president for peace talks, for, you know, some kind of consensus, so to say, with Russia. But those leaders were brought to Irpin, and that changed a lot. I think that you can find their pictures from today's visit on the internet, and those pictures will tell you everything. Those you know, expressions on their faces, they will tell you everything. So after that, I think they've changed their mind a lot. As for naked photos of Max, so we are going to gym together because he has almost the same problem as me regarding our shape. So I think that as soon as he is back into shape, we can do something about it. Yeah, as for orcs, I don't think that it makes me Frodo. Maybe Gollum, because he had no hair.
I like that. We had one final donation as well. That was brilliant. I love that. Since it donated Canadian $9.19, says, thanks, Starsky, for what you are doing. And thanks to the Shills for being part of the gang. Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
So it looks like we're a little over the 2-hour mark anyway. So viewer questions have kind of wound down. Unless we had any pertinent panel questions, anything anybody wanted to get in?
I've got a couple of quick points.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think maybe next time you get in the gym with Max, I think you maybe should do a live stream from the showers. That will put your that'll put your viewership up, and get those PayPal donations in. That might be a good one. I have another plan though. An automatic weapon system that can really help you out, based on what somebody else was saying in a super chat earlier. Now, maybe if you fit Apple tags or some kind of tagging system to all the washing machines in Ukraine, if any of them start showing any unusual motion, that can be picked up by Starlink satellites. That information can then be sent to Amazon delivery drones that can fly over those targets automatically and drop bombs on them. No human involved.
Flawless.
Flawless
What could
plan.
possibly go wrong?
Just don't move house without notifying the Ukrainian intelligence service.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can say that the best way to deal with orcs is to basically poison all the vodka in the area. I think it's like 100% success.
I saw somewhere that they're claiming that Russians are like looting shops and things and drinking perfumes and deodorants because they can't get enough alcohol. Is that really true? Is that just kind of like a bit of stupid propaganda?
Are they 13? Like, what are they?
I mean, if you're gonna break into a shop and steal something, just steal the vodka. Don't steal the perfume.
Okay, so before you told me, I was asking myself, like, why did Russians left an empty bottle of perfume like next to my office in Hostomel? Like literally, I swear. And I know the answer now.
Because someone was shitting in their beds.
They were shitting everywhere.
Yeah.
They even took a shit next to my office. It's basically like everywhere.
No wonder they need deodorant.
Yeah.
That's vile. Drinking perfume. I can't stand the smell of half of them, much less drink it down and taste it for 3 days. All right, so I think we're gonna, unless there's anything else, we'll go ahead and do some wind down and let everybody say their farewells for the night, if that's okay. You ready to go, Aimee?
Yes, please. Sounds great. So thank you very much. This was a great show tonight. And I'm going to get right around the room, but I did want to say something that stood out to me about the mom who had the autistic child that had to be told about his dad. I'm so sorry. I have an autistic son as well, and it's just the two of us because we lost his dad, and that's a hard thing to have to do, and to try to get them to process that whole thing. And so I'm very sorry you had to do that, but good job. You did a great job with that. So thank you. I feel for that mom. I really do. So I'm going to get right around the room now, and I'm going to start with Fallacy Dave. Dave, what are your thoughts on this evening?
Good show as always. Thanks for having me. I think we've discussed a lot of psychology tonight. It's all been about trying to be as healthy as possible. And yeah, I do hope everybody out there can cope in their own way. I think the best example or the best advice I can give is to not isolate yourself. It's all very well being in a abusive situation if you're with a, maybe it's not war, but you're in a an abusive relationship maybe, and they're being a bit overbearing. That could be very difficult, but certainly don't try and force that on yourself. Always try and get out there, contact people, make it the first thing you do every day.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. Absolutely. And next up, we have Mipet 69. Mipet, what are your thoughts on this evening?
As always, really, really informative. Coming from Aussie, you're welcome here anytime, Starsky. As you know, we're just waiting for the end of this, and yeah, come down and we'll have a huge barbie for you. And anyone else you want to bring with you, you're all welcome. Yeah, thank you so much for tonight, and Slava Ukraini.
Heroям Slava. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And next up, we have Gary, Isle of Wight. Gary, what are your thoughts on this evening? Gary.
Oh, sorry, Aimee.
No, that's all right.
I was skipping around. I'm sorry, I haven't got headphones on at the moment, so apologies for the feedback. No, it was interesting. It was very good. I had a bit of a back and forth with a guy in the chat there, which was fun. And thank you, Just Me, for being a gentleman and acknowledging what you know is correct. So on to the next person, Aimee.
All right. Thank you so much. And next up, we have Aaron Reece. Aaron, what are your thoughts on this evening?
Weeks like this week can be a little tough because it's almost like a stalemate. They're gaining ground in Ukraine in certain areas, but others are suffering serious bombing, things like that. But I think the important thing to take away is that they are standing strong. They're not going to turn tail and run. They've demonstrated that over and over. So now it's just down to a matter of us supporting them in the ways they need, be that humanitarian aid or the weapons that our nations are shipping over, so that they can get those in their hands and push back. I have no doubt that that's going to happen given the tenacity of the Ukrainian army. So, I mean, just it's going to take time, but the Russians are going to regret it. So beyond that, Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Thank you so much. And we have next up, we have Operator Starsky. What are your thoughts on this evening? And thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Aimee. Yeah, I received a lot of good questions from our viewers, and I couldn't answer a bunch of those. And of course, to me, it's a very good opportunity to learn new things, new topics, which I will absolutely do. So thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. We enjoy having you here all the time. And, we love having you in the family. So this is great. Thank you. And last but not least, we have our producer for the evening. Thank you so much for doing so. We have DKG Custom. DKG, what are your thoughts on this evening?
Thank you very much. As usual, Starsky just brings the wealth of information, just drops us on us, and interesting stuff. Now, now I noticed that this is an interesting question, because I noticed that the numbers are down from last week. Kind of how wondering, like what Aaron was talking about, there's like a stalemate, or are people just starting to get war weary? Apart from the people who are actually fighting in it, of course, but just people outside, and other things are starting to take over, like the Jan 6 inquiries and gun control and all. So much going on in the world that's detracting from the war again. Who knows? But it's just a thought. It's an opinion. I don't know. I have no answers, and I don't expect Starsky to bring one on either. But the only thing I can say to Starsky, well, now you actually going to see your female sergeant tomorrow. There is one thing you can do. You can sing. Kiss me goodnight, Sergeant Major. Tuck me in my little wooden bed. Slava Ukraine!
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much. It was a great evening. Like I'd said before, the one moment that did stand out was that poor mom with the autistic boy. I feel so bad, that, as a mom, that fellow mom, that stands out to me. So thank you. I want to thank everyone in the chat for coming. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for all your questions. And thank you for being patient with us as we go through them. And I want to thank everyone on the panel as well. Thank you very much. We had a very wonderful show tonight, especially with all the insights that you all bring, all the unique questions that you have. Thank you so much. And so with that, I just want to wish everyone a great night. Thank you so much. Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Slava Ukraine!
Slava Ukraine!
Slava Ukraini.
Let's hope this bloody button.
It's over. Go home.